Over the past decade, Nicaragua has become one of the most authoritarian countries in the Western Hemisphere.
That was the voice of NPR host Alsa Chang introducing one of a series of reports on Nicaragua.
And for more than a year now, the country has also kept foreign journalists out.
The series is based upon first-hand reporting in Nicaragua by NPR's Ader Peralta, who is based in Mexico City, Mexico.
What I found is that on the surface, everything points to normal. Shops are open, they're stocked, people go about their daily lives. But once you dig just a little bit, you find that this is a country that lives in fear.
For the purpose of providing some context to the conversation we're about to have with two foreign journalists living in Nicaragua, one of them, Stephen Sefton, who's originally from Ireland, has been having a weekly conversation with me about news and events in Latin America and the Caribbean for the past 11 years. And the other, Camila Escalante, is a Canadian journalist who grew up in the United States. And she works for an international news agency, in fact, several international news agencies.
Well, it speaks to a larger problem about what's going on there at NPR and at other media outlets in the U.S., some of which receive public funding, others of which are just plain and simple, straightforward corporate media. But in order to get a job at a place like this, you need to cover a certain kind of story from a certain kind of angle. And quite frankly, right now, we're in a period where people are watching conventional television less. They are turning to what this is, podcasts and other forms of social media in order to get their news. And in order to get the clicks that are necessary, they need to show a country that is completely broken, that is depleting. They have to have sensationalist news, and they have to attack a country where those sorts of things don't exist. So where there isn't a coup, where there isn't a destabilized situation or an earthquake with disaster porn or whatever it needs to be, they need to kind of go along with the same State Department line, which is to say that some sort of a dictatorship exists and paint a picture of a country that is completely wrecked, where there's no progress. They like making it seem as if actually socialist countries are from the past, that they're not in the future, that they're not with the times, and things like that. And so a lot of that sort of language was used in this report. And it's very manipulative. It's making claims that there's a political crisis, which simply doesn't exist in Nicaragua today, but does exist in many other countries of the world. But in Latin America, there is a political crisis ongoing right now in Ecuador and in neighboring Honduras. There is not one here. He also says it's a country in constant turmoil. But he doesn't mention all of the repeated attempts at U.S. meddling here in the country that included military intervention over the last 200 years, or the other sorts of, sanctions are not mentioned, and the way in which those are used to make life more difficult economically and really harm the day-to-day life of regular Nicaraguans. So, there's a lot of issues ethically in terms of the methods that are used in order to even bring together a report like this on Nicaragua. And in large part, it's that sort of propaganda that is being, put in the Kool-Aid that unfortunately a lot of the so-called progressives and leftists in the U.S., but also in Latin America are drinking today.
Yep, they sure are. And they must be thirsty for it, too, because they sure are drinking a lot of it. Anyway, let's talk about the anniversary this past Monday.
Well, this week, we commemorated, of course, in Latin America, and Chile commemorated the 50th anniversary of the coup against Salvador Allende, which was 1973. And obviously, 50 is a very big number. There were some international delegations that went to Santiago de Chile, but this was commemorated all across the country and around the world at the different embassies and different cities, and all sorts of organizations around the world really held their own commemoration of this event because, of course, Salvador Allende was the first socialist president to be elected here in Latin America. And it's very significant because that event opened the doors to a dictatorship and a lot of repression and really heinous acts and crimes against humanity that were committed on a very large scale in Chile, as many people know. And so many people were there and took part in the various commemorations in Santiago, including, of course, President Gabriel Boric, who extended invitations to many other world leaders. I believe he invited President AMLO of Mexico. He invited Tom Morello, who was the guitarist of Rage Against the Machine, and many other people to participate in this event. Of course, they said things like nunca más, never again, sort of saying that we can never allow for any sort of dictatorship and those sorts of human rights violations that took place there to ever happen again. A lot of people were disappeared during that period, and some of them to have never been found. There were crimes committed against many people of many sectors of society. And so that was being commemorated. Of course, the United States itself even had a position and released a statement, as well as the OAS, to commemorate this date, saying that they are collaborating with the Chilean government and with Gabriel Boric. And for that reason, they released some declassified documents about what had taken place in the U.S. involvement. Of course, this was a U.S.-backed coup that took place. And they were saying that, they honor the memory of the victims and those who, struggled against repression and all of that. It's really bizarre for them to say that, because right now they're carrying out the same type of intervention, but it might have taken a different form in various countries of the world, and certainly our region. Primarily, I would point to the sort of multi-pronged attacks that they're waging against Nicaragua with new sanctions, but also with all different forms of hostility and a propaganda war. So it's really bizarre that the United States was there front and center, participating in these commemorative acts, and even from giving a statement from the pulpit of the State Department on that day.
And in fact, it may be worth pointing out that Andrés Manuel López Obrador was actually on an official visit to Chile over the last few days, and his visit happened to coincide with, presumably by design, with this 50th anniversary of the military coup against Salvador Allende. And I also think it's worth noting that the coup took place in 1973, and it was followed within just a matter of years with similar military coups in Uruguay and Argentina. And at that time also, there was a military dictatorship in Bolivia. And also, of course, there was the military dictatorship in Brazil at that time. So that coup was very much part of a design by the United States to prevent popular movements, even relatively moderate popular movements, from coming to power and implementing policies that benefited the interests of the respective countries' impoverished majorities. And I think Camila's right to point out the contradiction between the way these so-called leftist leaders like Gabriel Boric and others, Andrés Manuel López Obrador himself, in fact, but also Gustavo Petro and Alberto Fernandez in Argentina. They'll make these remarks about how dreadful the military coup was in Chile in 1973, but they completely fail to make the connection between, as Camila said, the self-same playbook is being used against countries like Venezuela, has been used against Cuba for 60 years, and in more recent years is being used against Nicaragua.
Well, we have to end this here. We're out of time. Stephen, Camila, thank you, and look forward to speaking with you again next week.
Thank you very much,
Don.
Don.
For KPFK, I'm Don DeBar.